The first cup of coffee I carried into Clara Hayes's room nearly ended up in the trash. "I don't need a stranger feeling sorry for me," she said without looking up from the paperback in her lap. "That's a relief," I told her, "because this coffee is too bad to qualify as kindness." She finally glanced at the paper cup in my hand, then at the plastic bracelet on my wrist, as if deciding which of us looked less trustworthy. The next morning, the chair beside her bed had been pulled away from the wall and angled toward the door. 3 days later, after I had gone home, I came back with coffee from my own bakery and found her room empty. My name is Nathan Reed. I was 32 years old, single, and the owner of Reed and Rye, a small bakery in Richmond, Virginia, that my father had opened before I was born. I had spent most of my adult life waking at 3 in the morning, arguing with temperamental ovens, and pretending I did not mind that every holiday belonged to customers before it belonged to me. I had been engaged once, but my fiancé eventually got tired of hearing that the bakery only needed me through the weekend. There was always another weekend. By the time I understood what she meant, she had packed the blue coffee mugs and left me the white ones. I ended up at St. Vincent's Hospital because I ignored a pain in my side until my appendix ruptured during the Friday breakfast rush. Surgery handled the immediate problem. An infection bought me another week in room 512. The woman across the hall was in room 517. She was 28, though I did not learn that until later, with dark blonde hair cut just below her chin and gray eyes that made even a hospital gown look like something she had chosen for practical reasons. She had undergone emergency abdominal surgery after collapsing at work. I never asked a nurse for the details. Hospitals turned privacy into a kind of currency, and I had no right to spend hers. What I did notice was the chair. Mine was rarely empty. My Aunt Rosa came every afternoon with containers of broth and opinions about my discharge plan. My head baker, Luis, visited twice and brought photographs of bread as if I had been separated from my children. Even Mrs. Delaney from the flower shop next door appeared with a card signed by half the block. Clara's chair stayed against the wall. No flowers, no tote bag hanging from the hook, no half-finished crossword left by a bored relative. Nurses came and went. A social worker stopped by once. Clara spent hours reading, answering messages on her phone, or staring out the window at the parking garage. On my 4th morning, my doctor ordered me to walk the corridor. I moved slowly, one hand pressed against my abdomen, while an IV pole rattled beside me like an impatient shopping cart. Near the nurse's station stood a coffee dispenser with 3 buttons, regular, decaf, and something labeled bold that tasted mostly of regret. I bought 1 cup, took a sip, and saw Clara watching from across the hall. It was not a dramatic look. She did not stare. Her eyes settled on the steam for half a second before returning to her book. But I had spent 14 years watching people look through bakery glass. I knew the difference between hunger and simple curiosity. I asked the nurse at the desk, a calm woman named Janine, whether Clara was allowed coffee. Janine raised an eyebrow. "You planning to open a cafe on this floor?" "I own one downstairs in spirit. That is not what I asked." I thought I might bring her a cup. Janine studied me long enough to make me wonder whether generosity required paperwork. "Regular is fine. No cream." Her name is Clara. I bought a 2nd cup and crossed the hall. Clara's first response was the line about pity. Mine was the truth about the coffee. She looked at the IV pole beside me. "You walked all the way over here for a joke?" "I walked all the way over here because my doctor believes movement builds character. And the coffee? Poor judgment." Her mouth moved, almost a smile, but she stopped it. "I can get my own." "I believe you. Then why are you still holding it?" "Because bending over to throw it away is currently beyond my medical clearance." That did it. A small laugh escaped her before she could hide it. She put the book face down and reached for the cup. "Thank you," she said. "Wait until you taste it." She took one careful sip, closed her eyes, and swallowed as if completing a difficult assignment. "This is awful. I tried to warn you. You brought it anyway. I was hoping shared disappointment might build community." She looked toward the visitor's chair, still pushed against the wall. "That sounds like something a man who owns a bakery would say." I paused. "How did you know? You have flour under one fingernail." I looked at my hand. She was right. "Occupational evidence," I said, "or poor hygiene. I'm beginning to regret the coffee." Clara lifted the cup again. "Too late. It's mine now." I went back to my room smiling, which hurt more than I expected. Across the hall, she left her door open. The next morning, there were two changes. The first was that Clara had combed her hair. The second was that the visitor's chair had been moved beside her bed. She noticed me noticing it. "Don't make this important," she said. "I would never. You're carrying 2 cups." The machine made a clerical error. You pressed the button twice. "I see you've been gathering evidence." She nodded toward the chair. "Sit down before you tear something." I entered with my IV pole and lowered myself carefully. The chair was too low, my incision pulled, and Clara pretended not to see the effort it took. That was the first kindness she gave me. For 20 minutes we talked about harmless things. The hospital's gelatin, which seemed capable of surviving a century. The ceiling vent in her room, which clicked every 40 seconds. The digital clock near the elevators, which lost 2 minutes every afternoon, and somehow regained them by morning. Then Clara asked, "Who is Rosa?" "My aunt." "Why? You said her name in your sleep yesterday." "I did not. You also promised someone named Luis that the sourdough starter would forgive him." "That sounds medically confidential. So Rosa runs the bakery while you're here?" "Rosa believes she runs everything." "Does she?" "Usually." Clara wrapped both hands around the cup. "That must be nice." The words were light, but something underneath them was not. I looked at the empty windowsill. "Who runs things for you?" Her eyes sharpened. "I do. That was not what I meant." "I know." I waited, but she did not continue. A nurse came in to check her blood pressure, and the conversation slid back toward safe ground. Before I left, Clara said, "The coffee was slightly less terrible today. It came from the same machine. Maybe the company improved it overnight. Or maybe you wanted me to come back." She met my eyes for 1 second too long. "Don't make this important, Nathan." It was the first time she used my name. That afternoon, Aunt Rosa arrived carrying a cardboard tray from Reed and Rye and wearing the expression she reserved for people who had made inefficient choices. "You look pale," she said. "I'm in a hospital." "You looked pale before the hospital." She set a cup of coffee on my table, then glanced across the corridor. Clara was reading again, although I had begun to notice that she turned pages more slowly whenever people were talking near my door. Rosa followed my gaze. "That is her." "There is no her. You asked me to bring an extra coffee. That was a separate logistical matter." Rosa picked up the second cup. "Then I will solve the logistics." Before I could stop her, she crossed the hall. Clara looked up as Rosa entered. "You must be the woman keeping his business alive." Rosa gave me a pleased look over her shoulder. "I like her already." She placed the coffee beside Clara's bed. "This one is drinkable. Almond milk, no cream." Janine approved it. Clara looked toward the nurse's station. "Does everyone on this floor discuss my beverages? Only the people with standards," Rosa said. Within 5 minutes, she had learned that Clara worked as a records coordinator for the city courthouse, preferred mystery novels with sensible endings, and had been living in Richmond for almost 3 years. Rosa did not ask why no one visited. She did something more effective. She spoke as though Clara had already been included. "We are reopening the bakery counter on Monday," she said, "whether Nathan returns or not." "I will return," I called from my doorway. "You will return when your surgeon says you can stand for more than 15 minutes. I own the place, and yet the ovens continue to function in your absence. A terrible blow to your ego." Clara laughed into her cup. Rosa stayed nearly half an hour. When she left, she put her business card on Clara's table. "If you need soup, bread, or a ride after discharge, call the bakery. Someone always answers." Clara's expression closed slightly. "That's generous, but I'll be fine." Rosa did not argue. "The card works whether you are fine or not." After she left, Clara touched the corner of it with one finger. "She does this to everyone? Only people she plans to keep." Clara pulled her hand away. "She doesn't know me." Rosa considers that a temporary condition. For a while, we listened to the sounds of the floor. Rubber wheels, muted announcements, the soft alarm of an IV pump somewhere nearby. Then Clara said, "My aunt raised me." The confession came so quietly that I almost missed it. "Her name is Margaret. She's 74 and lives with me." I waited. "She has early-stage vascular dementia. Most days are good. Some aren't. When I collapsed at work, my supervisor called an ambulance. I was already in surgery before anyone could ask what should happen with Margaret." "Where is she now?" "At a respite home in Henrico. She thinks I'm attending a records conference in Baltimore." I stared at her. "You told her you were at a conference?" "She panics in hospitals. My uncle died in one when she was young. If she knew I had surgery, she would try to come here, get confused, and blame herself for not taking care of me." "What about friends?" "My closest friend moved to Oregon last year. The people at work offered to visit, but then they would ask about Margaret, and I didn't want the whole office discussing whether I can still care for her. So you told everyone not to come." "I arranged what needed to be arranged." The careful wording told me she had repeated it to herself many times. "What happened to you?" I asked. "A twisted section of intestine, scar tissue from an operation when I was a child. The surgeon fixed it, but there were complications." She looked down at the blanket. "I'm supposed to avoid lifting anything for 6 weeks. Margaret needs help getting in and out of the bath." There it was. The real fear had nothing to do with the incision under her gown. What did the social worker say? "That temporary home care is available. She gave me forms. You haven't filled them out." Clara's eyes cooled. "You ask too many questions. I own a bakery. Questions are how I discover who ordered the cake without a name on it." "This is not a cake." "No, it's harder." She turned toward the window. "People hear the word dementia and start making decisions for both of you. Where she should live, whether she should drive, whether I should sell the house. They speak slowly, as if the diagnosis belongs to everyone in the room. You think accepting help means they get a vote. I think help rarely arrives without opinions attached." I thought of Rosa reorganizing my discharge papers before she had finished reading them. Clara was not entirely wrong. "My father built Reed and Rye," I said. "After he died, every person who loved him had an idea about what I should keep, change, or never touch. For 2 years, I used his old recipe book even though half the measurements were wrong. Why? Because changing anything felt like admitting he was gone." Clara looked back at me. "What happened?" Rosa replaced the book with typed recipes and hid the original in her house. "That sounds like theft." "It was absolutely theft. Did it help?" "Yes." She picked up Rosa's card and turned it over. "That does not prove anything." "No, but you kept the card." She slipped it inside her book. Temporary evidence. The next morning was difficult for both of us. My infection markers had improved, so a nurse removed my IV and made me walk twice around the floor. Clara's surgeon advanced her diet and discovered she could not keep breakfast down. By 9, she looked exhausted and angry at her own body. I brought coffee but left it on the table without a joke. "Say something," she said. "I thought you wanted quiet." "I do. But not the kind that feels like everyone is waiting for me to fail." I sat beside her bed. "My first month running the bakery," I said. "I burned 87 dinner rolls before 6 in the morning." Clara frowned. "Why are you telling me this? Because failure can smell worse." She stared at me, then laughed once despite herself. 87? Rosa counted. Of course she did. I tried to throw them away before she arrived. The trash bag split behind the bakery. That sounds deserved. It was February. Frozen rolls rolled down the alley like cannonballs. Her shoulders loosened. "You are inventing this. I wish I were." The nausea passed by a late morning. Clara managed a little broth and half a piece of toast. When the nurse praised her, she looked annoyed, but I saw the relief in her face. That evening, she asked Janine for the home care forms. She did not fill them out. Not yet. But she placed them on the table instead of leaving them in the drawer. 2 days later, my surgeon said I could go home. The news should have felt like freedom. Instead, it arrived while I was watching Clara argue with a case manager about whether the respite home could keep Margaret for another week. "My insurance will not cover all of it," Clara said after the woman left, "and the agency the hospital recommended cannot begin until Thursday." "When are they discharging you?" "Possibly Wednesday." "That gives you 1 day. I can manage 1 day." "You cannot lift a grocery bag." "I can order groceries." "You cannot help Margaret bathe." "I will find a way." The sharpness in her voice warned me to stop. I did not. "Clara, finding a way is not the same as having a safe plan." Her face changed. "And bringing coffee across a hallway does not make you responsible for my plan." The words landed harder than they should have. Perhaps because they were true. "I know that," I said. "Do you?" I stood too quickly, felt pain pull under my bandage, and gripped the chair until it passed. Clara's anger disappeared. "Sit down. I'm fine." That phrase does not become convincing because you say it quietly. I lowered myself again. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she rubbed her thumb over the edge of the home care form. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know you're trying to help. I am trying too hard." "You do that?" "Professionally." A small smile appeared, but it did not solve anything. I told her I was leaving the next morning. She stared at the coffee cup between her hands. Rosa must be relieved. She has already scheduled my meals and hidden my car keys. Reasonable. Traitor. Clara looked toward the corridor. "You don't have to come back." "I know." "I know, you will be tired. The bakery will need you." "The bakery apparently has learned to survive. Then your life will need you." I understood what she was really saying. People made promises inside hospitals because sickness made ordinary time feel suspended. Then elevators opened, paperwork was signed, and the world resumed without the person left behind. "I will come Thursday," I said. 10 in the morning. You should not promise things to make a patient feel better. I am not promising it to a patient. Her eyes lifted to mine. I am promising it to Clara. She looked away first. The next morning, Rosa packed my belongings into 2 canvas bags and criticized every instruction on my discharge sheet as though she had personally invented recovery. Before we left, I crossed the hall with 2 cups from the machine. Clara was sitting near the window. The chair beside her bed was waiting. "Last terrible coffee?" she asked. "Last hospital coffee while I am a patient." That is an important distinction. I sat. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Her phone number was written inside, along with one sentence. If you are really coming Thursday, bring something strong enough to erase this week. I own a bakery, I said. You have set an achievable standard. 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock. Rosa drove me home. The bakery occupied the ground floor of an old brick building, with my apartment above it, and a narrow courtyard in back. When we turned onto Broad Street, I saw the green awning, the chalkboard menu, and a line of customers through the window. Nothing looked broken. That should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like arriving at a family dinner and discovering no one had noticed I was late. Rosa must have seen my face. "Luis has done good work," she said. "I know. That does not make your work less valuable. I know. You are saying 'I know' in the tone of a man who knows nothing." She parked behind the bakery and helped me upstairs. I slept most of the afternoon. At 6, Luis came up with soup and a sales report I had not requested. "We sold out of rye by noon," he said. "Did you adjust tomorrow's batch?" "Yes." "Did you check the old oven? The left side runs hot." "Yes." "What about the wholesale order for Nathan?" Luis set the report on the table. "We did not erase your name from the sign." I looked toward the floorboards, beneath which I could hear the faint clatter of pans. "I'm not worried about the sign. You are worried the place learned how to breathe without you." I did not answer. Luis smiled without humor. "That is what you trained us to do." After he left, I called Clara. She answered on the 4th ring. "Are you checking whether I kept the number?" "I was checking whether the hospital survived without me." "So far. How was dinner?" "Unidentifiable." "Good. Tomorrow will seem impressive." "You said Thursday. It is Wednesday." "I know." There was a pause. "Are you all right?" she asked. The easy answer waited in my mouth. I looked at the dark bakery below and chose something else. "I'm not sure," I said. Clara was quiet for a moment. "Neither am I." It was the first honest thing we gave each other outside the hospital. On Thursday, Rosa refused to let me drive. Luis delivered us to St. Vincent's at 9:53 with coffee from Reed and Rye and 2 pecan morning buns packed in a paper box. Room 517 was empty. The bed had been stripped. The book was gone. The home care forms were gone. The chair had been pushed back against the wall. I stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups and feeling foolish in a way that had nothing to do with coffee. Janine found me there. "She was discharged at 7 this morning," she said. "She knew I was coming. She did." "Did something happen?" Her aunt became agitated at the respite home. Clara insisted on leaving as soon as her surgeon approved it. My stomach tightened. "She went home alone?" Her supervisor picked her up. "The home care agency moved the start date to today." Janine reached into the pocket of her scrub top. She left this. The envelope had my name written across the front. Inside was a note. "Nathan, I did not leave to avoid you. Margaret had a bad night, and once I knew I could go home safely, staying felt impossible. The agency is meeting us there. My supervisor has groceries, Rosa somehow sent bread, and I signed every form the social worker gave me. You were right about one thing, which I will deny if repeated. A safe plan is not the same as surrender. I still want the coffee." Saturday, 11 o'clock. Reed and Rye. The small table beneath the clock, unless that belongs to someone important. "Come because you want to, not because you think the chair is empty." Clara. At the bottom, she had added another line. "I moved the chair because I wanted you to stay." I read the note twice. Then I handed 1 cup to Janine. "This is real coffee," I said. She accepted it. I was wondering when your judgment would improve. Saturday morning, I arrived downstairs at 10:15, even though the bakery opened at 7, and I lived directly above it. Clara was already at the table beneath the old brass clock. She wore a soft green sweater and loose black trousers. Without the hospital gown and wristband, she looked both more familiar and less. Her movements were careful. A canvas tote rested at her feet, and Rosa had already placed a plate between us with 2 warm morning buns. "You are early," I said. "You own the building. I still had to travel down 14 stairs. I took a ride share across town. You win. I assumed I would." I set 2 cups on the table. Colombian roast. Medium body. Chocolate finish. No medical clearance required. Clara took a sip and closed her eyes. "Well, this creates a serious problem." "What problem?" "Now I know how much you were insulting me with the hospital coffee." I laughed and sat across from her. For the first several minutes, conversation felt strangely formal. At St. Vincent's, our rooms had explained why we were together. Here, there was no IV pole, no nurse interrupting, no reason except choice. Clara broke the silence. "Margaret likes your bread. That is the highest compliment available." She asked why I went to Baltimore and came home with a scar. What did you tell her? The truth. Most of it. How did she take it? She cried. Then she became angry that I had not told her. Then she forgot the order of events and became angry again. Clara traced a finger around the rim of her cup. But the home care aide, Denise, was there. Not your Denise. Another Denise. An alarming concentration of competent women. She helped Margaret settle down, and she helped me wash my hair because lifting my arms hurt. Clara said it matter-of-factly, but color rose in her cheeks. That was difficult, I said. Yes. Did the world end? Not completely. Promising. She smiled. How is the bakery? Thriving in a way I find personally insulting. And your incision? Also thriving. That answer was suspiciously quick. I looked down at my coffee. It pulled yesterday when I carried a flour sack. Clara's expression changed. You lifted a flour sack? It was 25 pounds. You were discharged 3 days ago. Luis needed help. Did he ask? No. No, then he did not need help. You needed to feel necessary. The accuracy of it made me defensive. You have known me 9 days. And you knew I had not completed the home care forms after 2 conversations. That was different. Because you were right? Possibly. Clara leaned back. Nathan, you crossed a hospital hallway because you noticed an empty chair. That was kind, but kindness and control can wear the same coat if you are not careful. I looked toward the bakery counter, where Luis moved between customers without glancing at me. My father died in the kitchen downstairs, I said. Clara's face softened. He had a heart attack during the morning shift. I was 24. I had gone home early because we argued about expanding the lunch menu. Rosa found him. For years, I believed that if I had stayed, I could have done something. Could you have? The cardiologist said no. But you did not believe him. I still don't, some days. Clara was quiet. So I arrive first, I continued. I leave last. I notice every loose handle and every empty shelf. If the bakery needs me every minute, then no one can disappear while I am somewhere else. Her eyes held mine. That sounds exhausting. It has excellent reviews. She reached across the table and laid her fingers over my hand. It was the first time we touched on purpose. I am not an empty chair, she said. I know. And Margaret is not a problem for you to solve. I know. but you can still bring coffee." I turned my hand beneath hers. "That I can do." We stayed until the lunch crowd began. Then I walked Clara to the curb. I did not take her arm. I carried her tote because she asked me to, and the distinction mattered. Over the next month, we built a routine slowly enough that neither of us named it. On Tuesday evenings, I delivered dinner to Clara and Margaret's small bungalow in Northside. On Saturdays, Clara came to the bakery after the morning rush. Sometimes Margaret came too, with Denise or Rosa, and sat beneath the brass clock, criticizing the music. Clara's recovery moved in uneven steps. Some mornings she walked 3 blocks and felt triumphant. Other days, pain folded her onto the couch before noon. She returned to courthouse work from home, reviewing scanned property files and answering questions by email. She hated needing breaks. She hated the home care schedule taped to the refrigerator. She hated it less each week. Margaret had lucid days when she told long stories about raising Clara in a house with a leaking roof and one reliable frying pan. On difficult days, she called Clara by her sister's name or searched the hallway for a bedroom that had belonged to someone else. I learned not to correct every mistake. I learned that asking, "Do you feel safe?" worked better than saying, "You are home." I learned that Clara could accept help most easily when she had chosen the shape of it. She learned that I skipped lunch when the bakery was busy. She began sending Luis text messages instead of me. "Make him sit down. Do not let him carry anything. There is soup in the upstairs refrigerator." "This is an abuse of professional relationships," I told her. "Luis says you promoted him to head baker and still treat him like an assistant. Luis talks too much, only when encouraged." One rainy Tuesday, the home care aide canceled with an hour's notice. Clara called me, then hung up before I answered. I saw the missed call and drove over with Rosa. Clara opened the door looking furious. "I did not ask you to come." "You called. I changed my mind." Rosa stepped past us with a grocery bag. People are allowed to change their minds twice. Once to refuse help and once to accept it. Margaret called from the living room. "Is that the bread man?" I looked at Clara. "The bread man appears to have been requested." Her anger cracked. She let us in. That evening, Rosa helped Margaret bathe while Clara rested. I made tomato soup and grilled cheese. After dinner, Clara and I stood on the back porch under the narrow awning, listening to rain strike the metal gutter. "I hated calling," she said. "I know. I hated that you came anyway." "I know." She looked at me. "I'm glad you did." The rain softened. I could smell wet earth from the small yard and rosemary from a planter by the steps. Clara touched my sleeve. "You can kiss me now." The directness surprised a laugh out of me. "Is that a request or a court order?" "Do not ruin this." I leaned closer and kissed her gently. She tasted faintly of coffee and tomato soup. When I pulled back, her hand remained at the back of my neck. "That was acceptable," she said. "I own a bakery. We aim above acceptable." She kissed me again. The kiss did not fix us. It made the good parts easier and the hidden parts more dangerous. 2 weeks later, Clara's home care coverage was reduced. The agency could provide mornings, but not evenings. Margaret had begun wandering after sunset, opening the front door because she believed she needed to catch a bus to a job she had retired from 20 years earlier. Clara tried to work, recover, and supervise her at the same time. She stopped coming to the bakery on Saturdays. When I visited, she smiled too quickly and kept one eye on the hallway. Rosa knew a director at an adult day center near the bakery. Without telling Clara, I called, explained the situation, and reserved a place for Margaret 3 afternoons a week. I told myself I was creating an option. Then I asked Rosa to bring brochures to the house. Clara read the first page and went still. You discussed Margaret with someone I have never met? I did not give private medical details. You gave enough for them to offer a place. I thought it could help. You thought. You called. You decided. I did not decide anything. You can say no. After you and Rosa arranged it? Rosa quietly took Margaret into the kitchen, leaving us alone in the living room. I lowered my voice. You are exhausted. That does not make my judgment irrelevant. I was trying to give you room to breathe. No, Nathan. You were trying to make the fear stop bothering you. That is not fair. It is exactly fair. You cannot stand beside a problem without reaching for tools. I am not treating you like a problem. You are treating my life like a bakery after closing. Move this, label that, make a schedule, prevent the next disaster. Her words struck the oldest bruise in me. At least I am here, I said. The moment the sentence left my mouth, I wanted it back. Clara's face emptied. As opposed to whom? She asked. I did not mean my parents who died, my friend in Oregon, the co-workers I did not invite, or the people you think should be ashamed because you were the one who noticed the chair. I meant I am trying. You meant your presence should buy authority. I stood there with no honest defense. Clara handed me the brochure. Go home. Clara, please. I left. For the next 6 days, she did not call. I sent one message apologizing without explanation. She replied that Margaret was safe and that she needed space. I gave it to her badly. I returned to the bakery full-time before my doctor approved it. I arrived at 4, lifted mixing bowls, unloaded flour, and stayed through the lunch rush. On the 3rd day, pain tightened across my abdomen. I ignored it until Luis found me leaning against the walk-in refrigerator. You are going upstairs, he said. I am finishing the rye. You are sweating. It is a bakery. He took the dough scraper from my hand. Your father taught me to shape bread. He also taught me that pride ruins more batches than yeast. I almost laughed. Then the pain sharpened, and I let him call Rosa. The surgeon said I had strained the healing tissue but had not caused a new rupture. I was ordered home for another week. Rosa drove me upstairs in silence. You may say it, I told her. I have several options. Choose one. You arranged care for Margaret because Clara looked tired. Then you nearly returned yourself to the hospital because you looked tired and called it work. That one was longer than necessary. It needed room. She put soup on the stove and left me with my own hypocrisy. That evening, someone knocked. Clara stood outside my apartment holding the Adult Day Center brochure. I visited it, she said. I stepped aside, but she remained in the doorway. It is a good place, she continued. They have a garden, music twice a week, and staff trained in dementia care. Margaret liked the director. I am glad. I enrolled her for Tuesdays and Thursdays. I am glad, I repeated. That does not make what you did acceptable. I know. She looked at me carefully. Rosa said you hurt yourself. Nothing serious. Do not make me ask twice. I told her the truth. Clara closed her eyes for a moment. We are very impressive people. Extraordinary. You arrange my help without permission. I ignore my limits until I resent everyone. You ignore yours until a surgeon gets involved. I have no objection to that summary. She entered and sat at the kitchen table. I remained standing until she pointed at the chair across from her. I do not need you to rescue me, she said. I understand. No, I need you to understand the second half. I also do not want a life where I never need you. I looked at her. Partnership is not the same as permission to take over, she said. But independence is not the same as doing everything alone. I am sorry. So am I. For what? For making you pay for every person who offered help with strings attached before you. I reached across the table, stopping before I touched her hand. She turned her palm upward. This time, I said, we ask first. This time, we answer honestly. I took her hand. The test came sooner than either of us expected. In late April, a thunderstorm knocked out power across Northside. Clara called me at 8:12. Her voice was controlled, which meant she was frightened. Margaret is gone. I was already reaching for my keys. When did you last see her? 10 minutes ago. I was looking for candles. The back door was open. Call the police. I will call Rosa and Luis. Tell me what Margaret is wearing. Clara answered every question. She did not apologize. She did not say she could handle it. When I arrived, she stood on the porch with a flashlight, a raincoat over her pajamas, speaking to an officer. Margaret often talked about taking the number 6 bus to the department store where she had worked. The route no longer existed, but the old stop was 6 blocks away. I am checking there, Clara said. I will come with you. She nodded. We walked through hard rain, calling Margaret's name. At the 3rd intersection, Clara stumbled and pressed a hand to her side. I stopped. I can keep going, she said. I know. Do you want my arm? She looked at me, breathing hard. Yes. That one word held more trust than any promise we had made. We found Margaret beneath the awning of a closed pharmacy near the old bus stop. She was wet, furious, and insisting that the driver was late. Clara approached slowly. Aunt Margaret, the bus is stopped for the storm. I have to get to Miller's. Mr. Jacobs will dock my pay. Clara's face crumpled for half a second, then steadied. Mr. Jacobs called. The store is closed tonight. Nathan brought his car. Margaret looked at me. The bread man? Yes, ma'am. You are late. I have been told that before. She allowed me to hold the umbrella while Clara took her hand. We returned home together. After the police left and Margaret was asleep, Clara sat at the kitchen table wrapped in a blanket. The power returned with a click, filling the room with sudden yellow light. I used to think love meant preventing every bad thing, she said. I used to think it meant arriving before anyone could ask. She looked at our wet coats hanging by the door. Tonight? I asked. And I listened. Mostly. An excellent beginning. Clara reached for me. I sat beside her, and she rested her forehead against mine. I love you, she said. Not because you came for Margaret. Because you let me tell you how. I felt the old instinct to answer with a joke. Something light enough to protect me. I let it pass. I love you too, I said. Not because you needed me, because you made room for me without disappearing inside what I needed. We kissed in the quiet kitchen, while rain softened against the windows. 6 months later, Margaret was attending the day center 3 times a week. Clara returned to this courthouse on a reduced schedule and led a project to digitize fragile property records. I stopped opening the bakery every morning. Luis took Mondays and Thursdays, and the building remained standing. Clara did not move into my apartment. Not then. Instead, we chose a small house 2 streets from Reed and Rye, with a downstairs room for Margaret, a garden she could walk through safely, and a kitchen large enough for 3 stubborn people. We chose it together. On our first morning there, I woke before sunrise and made coffee. Clara found me on the back porch with 2 cups and a folded newspaper. Did the machine make an error? She asked. The machine has a long history of suspicious behavior. She sat beside me and accepted her cup. A year after our hospital stay, St. Vincent's invited Reed and Rye to provide pastries for a caregiver support breakfast. Clara came with me. We walked past room 517, where a man sat beside his wife's bed, reading aloud from a magazine. The chair was not empty. At the nurse's station, Janine accepted a coffee and asked whether Clara still considered mine an improvement over the hospital machine. "Barely," Clara said. We returned to the corridor window, where we had once watched the parking garage and pretended not to be afraid. I handed Clara a small envelope. Inside was Rosa's original bakery card, the one Clara had hidden inside her mystery novel. On the back, beneath the old phone number, I had written, "You were never an empty chair. You were the first person who taught me that staying matters more when it is chosen." Clara read it, then looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I kept this card because I wanted to believe someone would answer," she said. "Someone always will." She leaned into me, and we stood together while morning light moved across the hospital floor. I once thought I brought one cup of coffee to the neighbor across the hall because no one had come to see her. The truth was that Clara had spent years believing love was safest when it required nothing from anyone. I had spent years believing love was only real when I made myself necessary. The coffee did not save either of us. It simply gave us a reason to sit down long enough to tell the truth. These days, I still make 2 cups every morning. Never because the machine makes a mistake. Never because an empty chair needs filling. I make them because Clara chooses the seat beside me, and I choose to come back. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who has ever confused strength with being alone. And subscribe for more stories about the quiet choices that turn strangers into home.